diversify the economy that is not over-reliant on crude oil. Recently, there have been several talks about agriculture being on the front burner of our exports, but the reality is that there is a gulf in difference between the revenue agriculture can bring in and what oil currently generates, despite the steady growth in the value of Nigeria's agricultural exports over the years. Foreign earnings from the sector still remains below 20%. However, Nigeria's crude oil revenue jumped to 11 trillion naira in the first 6 months of 2022, according to the latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics. According to the report, this was an 83% increase in crude oil earnings from 6 trillion naira recorded in the first half of 2021. In view of this, can agriculture replace crude oil as we tend to seek diversification in the nation's economy? This will be our talking point this morning. We'll take a break now. When we'll come back with Grand Running, please stay with us. Welcome back. My guests are already here in the studio, and today we're taking a look at the agriculture vis-a-vis the crude oil. Can agriculture actually replace crude oil in the nation's economy? And I have my guests to do this. I have Mr. Victor OLATUNDE, a financial analyst and also a farmer. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's nice to be here all the time.
Yeah, today we're talking about this issue that also it has also been an issue in the nation's economy. We're talking about to diversify the nation's economy, and most people are also looking at agriculture as a way to actually diversify. But when you take a look at the trajectory of it in the last 3, 4, 5 years, you discover that we are not yet there. What's the problem?
I would say that there are quite a number of things that has to be checked when it comes to agriculture. I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter yesterday, and I think he mentioned the fact that he has seen a lot of tech guys, that are making some good income, and they've decided to go into farming. But he said that every single time he has also seen them run back to tech, to say they're coming back to tech. So I retweeted and I was like, the major reason why this is a major challenge is, number one, a very large percentage of agriculture that we are doing in Nigeria are still under unfavorable weather conditions. They are still not in what you can call controlled atmosphere, right? So, but if someone is able to maybe build a lot of greenhouses, a lot of aquaponics or hydroponics or soilless farming, that can actually give us some edge if there is a lot of investment in that space. But that is actually very capital intensive. So I said a lot of these agri-techs that are even trying to maybe use tech to, gather investments and all that for these farms. At the end of the day, you only put the money into the farm. It has not the farm, because they can always, cut the net and, come in. You can't still till today prevent herdsman invasion, even though that has grossly reduced. The herdsman invasion issue has actually reduced, but that's still a major issue. By the time you take a look at the northern side and maybe some part of southwest, we still have some level of insecurity. So the investment in agriculture is quite reducing when it comes to people at the large commercial brand, the Olam, the Dangote. They're expanding their farms for commercial viable stuff because they're able to do all the surveillance and all that will make them very much secured. But those people like maybe myself or young people that are able to really put in their millions, quite a number are actually maybe reducing in their level of investment in that space. So insecurity and of course maybe unfavorable conditions, and we can also reduce the effect of logistics till date. That is still a major problem till now. So
but then government is also showing interest in ensuring that more people come into this agriculture, and also a way to diversify the economy. Would you say this is also just a lip service?
I wouldn't say it's a lip service. Because by the time you take a look at this whole thing, all the way from the, let's say, continental level, African Development Bank is doing a lot in the agricultural space. The Central Bank of Nigeria has some funding and all that for that. But our experience is that agriculture is more than funds. Right? Capital is a very huge problem for agriculture in Nigeria, but the problem of capital is still like very, very, little compared to the problem of management, compared to the problem of seeds, quality seeds, compared to the quite a number of challenges there that the government actually should be able to take a look into and say, okay, you know what, we want to put in more effort in this space. And I'm only even talking about the crop side of things now. By the time you come to the livestock aspect, you still have a lot of challenges in that space. So I wouldn't say they are lip service, but then I think much more can always be done, especially also in the area of creation of markets, right? We still have a lot of challenge between the Nigerian market and the importation of materials having what's called price competition, right? So of course a lot of things are still being done around the importation, so that quite a number have been reduced. But in the market still, we still have some level of preference for these foreign ones in some areas.
Maybe because we are producing substandard goods.
It wouldn't be totally so. Yeah, I would agree at some level that we have not maybe hit it in some level of quality, right? But it doesn't mean that we have maybe substandard generally. So for example, take a look at rice. I think our rice is gradually improved. You can now have varieties that literally, taste like the imported ones, but by the time they still cook the imported one, you see the Nigerian one, you still like see the difference, right? Because the level of water absorption and all that are quite different. But by the time you take a look at it on the broader scope of things, yeah, we have some level of quality, but we have, let's say, a population that still has a very good preference for imported things. So I think, and that is where maybe organizations like National Orientation Agency and maybe agricultural extension organizations need to start coming to say, you know what, we don't have substandard, so we can still go for this Nigerian brand. We can still go for this. So access to markets is still a major issue. Farmers are still struggling to get their produce to the markets at the larger scale. Of course, some tech startups, some tech organizations are maybe getting to that space whereby they're able to maybe buy it off them and then come and distribute.
The buyback policy.
Yeah, buyback. So we have some tech organizations that are agri-tech organizations that are doing that. But on a larger scale of things, how many are they compared to how many millions Nigerians are? So it is still like some level of dropping.
So while you're also trying to tell us the challenges we're also having in this sector of the economy, you talked about management. What exactly do you mean by management?
So I would want to take it from different dimensions in terms of management. Someone wrote on Facebook yesterday and was like, why is it that till today we still have a situation whereby there are theft on the farms? Theft on farms are still a major issue. Challenge of integrity and all that among the people generally now. So this is not even about the government, it's about individuals. Right, you have a large poultry farm, and then you see that a good volume is being stolen, irrespective of all the cameras. You have that there. So management is an issue. So trust, integrity is a very critical thing. And this is no way you cannot tech it. You cannot use tech to just say I want to remove all the problems, because humans are still in charge of the tech. They can turn off the camera at the time they want to do the stuff they want to do. So that is still a very major issue. In terms of management generally, we also have situations whereby even though we have agricultural extension people graduating from universities, many of them don't have the practical knowledge. So we don't really have very well educated farm managers that can combine academic knowledge and the industry knowledge. That can say, okay, you know what, this is what you should do when this kind of problem is existing. This is how soon you should quickly get this done. So we have a situation whereby you're only getting a normal young guy that's just out there and say, come and manage this farm. Not like able to get a graduate that went to a polytechnic or university to study maybe farm management and all that to come there. So I think we need to do a lot of work really to build real top level farm management or even agricultural management. I would say maybe both academic and industrial processes that can help us to actually bring about people that can really manage farms, that can manage projects, and it will come to life, and they will actually succeed.
Does it mean that the institutions are also dedicated for this type of courses? We also have a federal college of agriculture here in Akure. Well, I know they also do a quite number of courses in agriculture, also here in Futa. Does it mean they're not doing quite well in terms of bringing up the young one that can also take up this challenge?
So there are multiple challenges around this. Like, you know, the whole agricultural problem in Nigeria is not what you cannot bring it in silos. So let's say mention numbers, but maybe just some 50 plus thereabout as a whole. So how many are able to take on these students that are graduating? So if you don't have enough food facilities that are processing this crop and all that, you don't have enough agricultural operation going on. So it becomes an ecosystem. So these people, when they graduate, the ones that are good are looking for the white collar jobs instead of wanting to actually manage farms and walk around, you know, processing facilities and all that. Then, I mean, my factory maybe cannot employ more than maximum of maybe 30. So in a year, for now, so if we expand, maybe we'll get to about 50, maybe, and you use maybe about 100 plus as contract staff, not as full staff. So I don't want a graduate from FECA to come and become a contract staff. So it's a whole lot of things. We need to be able to empower more in the area of manufacturing and processing of this agricultural produce. That will eventually allow us to do more of the farm management, more of the farm production and all that. The relative statement, and is a question of time. Oil is dwindling to an extent, right? The world is moving away from oil, even though that's a relative statement, because you still have some countries finding new oil all the time, right? But by the time you want to take a look at this whole thing, I can say that agriculture has the potential, right? It has the potential. And I mean, I mentor some young people in agriculture. For example, there's a brand that I mentor that they are in the drone technology space, right? They're using drones to do spraying of farms. They're using drones to do what's called GIS survey of farms. They're working with like of Olam and all that to do that. They're now bringing farms together in clusters to say, okay, you know what? Instead of you doing 2 acres or 2 hectares a day of spraying with one, can we bring about 10 of you together and drones to just move at once and all that, right? But you also now observe that when they want to do that cluster, somebody planted yam. Becomes a problem because all of we're using a very bad land tenure system where I can have just 2 hectares to do my stuff. So even clustering becomes quite difficult. But if we're able to start solving those problems of maybe clustering and supporting people to say, okay, whether there are 10 farmers that can be sprayed at once with drones, by the time we're getting to that level where we're no longer doing subsistence farming or smallholder farmer kind of thing, I think we'll be able to replace oil.
Because I asked that because when you talk about replacing oil, it has to do with foreign earnings.
Yeah, definitely.
Just last year, crude oil gave us 11 trillion naira.
Yeah.
But the agricultural produce was able to give around 300 billion naira.
It's not even enough because we're in a gap. Basic GAP, Global Agricultural Practice. Now, the GAP system actually measures the level of compliance of your food production or your whether it's the processed one to the international standard. Our vegetables are rarely exported because many of our farmers do not hit the global GAP system. Our tomatoes are not exported. So the kind of produce that should, even our yam, have issues in exportation. So I think the government, of course, the government has a lot to do in this in terms of foreign earnings. They have to come and work around. How do we get the farmers to get to the global GAP system? How do we get them to the point whereby they are planting in terms of high standard, right? They are not, they're not using extreme chemicals, in terms of herbicide spraying, in terms of pesticide spraying. And can they even go organic? Right? Ghana exports a lot, but a lot of our produce here are not organic, and a lot of them are they're not done with proper metrics, because we don't, how many agricultural extension field they get
billion naira last year.
Imagine. Interestingly, we are one of the highest producers of cashew, and ideally, even the nut itself, in terms of exports, has very large potential. If you go to Shaki down there, you see a lot of cashew farms wasting away a good volume. Right, and I think we've also not really worked around how can we optimize for export. If you want to optimize for export, then you can't use just human effort alone on the farms. You have to be able to really do very proper extraction, operation. You have to be able to extract them well, to be able to process them well, to the extent that they would meet global standard. You have a situation where people want to export stuff and they are deliberately putting stone inside their export just to look good, to weigh enough, something like that. But can we have a situation where we won't have returns? Rather, we have the who is checking them. How is it going? I mean, and kudos to NAPC. They are doing well relative to checking the standard of quality and all that. But right from the source, we need to now go back to the source to say okay, and that's what they do in India.
Let's take a look at the ginger. Ginger 12.63 billion naira. Yeah. Also have a cocoa butter 8.79 billion naira. Frozen foods 8.11 billion naira. Yeah. Plants 6.747 billion naira. Also palm nut and canning 3.72 billion naira. Is all of these figures, is it because of quality or because we are not producing enough?
So we are not processing enough. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
We are not processing enough. Ideally, a state like Ondo State only has maybe, I think apart from Ilology Cocoa, for example, and maybe the recent one in Accra here, John Kings, and maybe the one that is opposite on that same land, maybe maximum of 5 thereabout that are the high standard cocoa pressing factories in Ondo State. If you go to Ibadan, you have maybe FTN, you have a few other ones in Ibadan. We don't at a larger rate than we export.
So then why are we still looking at agriculture
as much as possible as well? But I'm not saying the ones that were created. Many are created, but not a lot are functional. So yeah, the potential is there. The challenges are there, but
what about the sincerity on the part of the farmers? You are a practical farmer, and sure. I know a lot of them also are farmers on papers who also go to access these funds. I will not go to farm.
So yesterday I saw that channels had a post on Instagram, and then they posted that a particular chairman of a major association of Nigerians are now banned. Why can't majority of the farmers also have digital IDs that we can use to trace when they got funding or